for them to perform and enrich our cultural life. There are also voices suggesting some form of guidelines to facilitate design and management of public open space in private developments. The general public and, of course, the Development Bureau established since 2007 are very much alive to these concerns. As we are a very open society, people talk about these issues. And in the last 2 years, we have tried to enhance transparency and public accessibility of public open space in private developments by providing information through the websites of our departments. You can find this information in the websites of Lands Department and Buildings Department. Information includes location, site plans, photographs, inquiry phone numbers. I think enhancing transparency is part of a way to deal with an evolving and emerging controversy. The department will update this list from time to time because when there are new cases come into life, like when their certificate of compliance or occupation permits are issued. The release of such information also encouraged the community to jointly monitor the use of such facilities and ensure they are properly open to the general public. We respond to the call of a set of guidelines, and as I shared with you from the beginning, we mooted with the consultants for a bit of time the direction we should be moving, and we also learned from overseas example. I hope that Wallace and the audience can share with us more about how examples we've looked into, like New York, come up with their own set of guidelines and how they deal with it. The guidelines were intended to provide a clear and practical basis for users, owners, and management companies to follow. In brief, we made a reference to both our own experience and international experience, especially the US, in drawing up the proposed set of guidelines. Again, what do we want to achieve with the set of guidelines? And at this stage, it is a set of draft guidelines already published in our website. We want to provide a framework for achieving better design based on principles of connectivity, appropriateness, and quality for private developments. One of the purposes is to seek a balance between the rights of owners and public enjoyment of the public open space. Different operational issues and standards are covered and need to be addressed. The draft guidelines actually encourage owners to allow non-commercial or charitable activities, including arts and cultural performances. But we also appreciate that all these activities must be carried out subject to the legal document between the government and the developers or small owners, whether they are the lease or the deed of dedication. There is also the overriding concern that the public open space or sometimes the passageway is included in this discussion, because some passageways are so broad that to a lay person, their function are very much like a public open space. We want to ensure that general public could enjoy the area and there should be no obstruction to pedestrian flow. We need to recognize that we are a highly built up and densely populated city. And there's also a need to comply with requirements imposed by government authorities or under various statutes. And besides, learning from the New York experience, it is also recommended that a limited and suitable level of commercial activities could be allowed in public open space, and that will add vibrancy to the public open space. A limited and suitable level of activities could be added there. Commercial activities is not a sin, it's not sinful. It could add vibrancy if properly managed. Very quickly, during the preparation of the guidelines, we have consulted various professional bodies. We have reported to the LegCo Development Committee, and because the process is so open, But aside from these institutions and committees which we have named, we also receive comments from individuals or interested parties. And of course, we collect views in forum like this morning's forum. Let me also summarize that after a few months' work, what are some of the major concerns arisen from the consultation with the general public and stakeholders? Very briefly, there are concerns about whether sufficient design flexibility will be allowed and about the operation of the design panel on greening and landscape. And as the consultancy team has recommended, the intention of the proposed guideline is to provide a basic framework without prescribing any specific nor the best design approach. It is a guideline, as its name suggests. Sufficient flexibility will be allowed taking into account the site-specific context and to achieve qualities of corresponding spatial types. And if you've read the draft guidelines, you'll see that reflected in the draft version already, and we will see how we could reflect these concepts in the final set of guidelines. As regards the design panel, it will be a setup comprising local and non-local experts to advise on greening and landscape matters. The design panel will be under our separate team. You know, it is actually a recommendation coming out from the report on tree management. And the panel, the design panel, will make reference on the set of guidelines to be published. Secondly, there are requests for more clarity and certainty in the operational standards. These are very practical issues, especially for developers and for management companies. A consultancy team will respond to these views by setting out clearly in the guidelines the standards and rules on matters like opening hours and information dissemination. Another area of concern is the legal basis for running the POS in private developments. Generally, the owner's obligations are set out in the contractual documents, namely the leases or the deeds of dedication. They're usually required to manage and maintain the POS to the satisfaction of government authorities. The guidelines would merely supplement and would not override these obligations. The fourth area of concerns lies with using the POS in private developments for non-commercial as well as commercial activities. The whole purpose is to bring vibrancy to the public open space. So it is the team's view that the owners are encouraged on a voluntary basis to permit such activities. It is also recommended that certain commercial activities which are complementary to the use of the public open space, and we use Gaia Restaurant as the test case of such rules. Well, in a nutshell, our work on the draft guidelines is at a pretty advanced stage after months of consultation and discussion in various public fora, discussion in radio phone-in programs, discussion in electrical panel. But we think that it is not the end. It is just a beginning. It is a concept between Development Bureau and the consultancy team that is going to be a live document. We should accumulate experience. We have accumulated certain experience, but we will continue to work on those set of guidelines, implement them, and see how we could update them and make it more relevant for Hong Kong. So, in a nutshell, my introduction, I believe Professor will supplement me. Thank you.